that time of year where I'm coming to you about the best books that I read in the year of 2025. Now, as I am filming this, it is New Year's Eve. My reading goal has been suppressed. I usually set it at about 50. And I've read, I think it's 79 this year. I technically have still got a book on the go, but I do not think I'm going to finish it by the end of today, so I don't count it. And before we start, there's a few little disclaimers. So I will try my best not to include spoilers, however, I can't promise that. Therefore, there will be a list in the description of all the books that I mentioned, so obviously skip ahead if you don't want to listen to them. I probably should have mentioned as well that these are in no particular order. And also I should have mentioned as well, these aren't all 5 stars. I think the majority of them are, if I remember correctly when I did my list. So anyway, let's crack on because I feel like I've been talking a lot about disclaimers and stuff. Let's just get into the bulk of it. So the first one I'm going to start with is Anatomy of a Scandal by Sarah Vaughan. This is a courtroom drama. It's so good, and I feel like every review I'm just going to go, it's really good, just go and read it. I never read from this author before, but since then I have read a lot from her backlist and I still enjoy her. So I would say she's one of my favourite new authors at the moment. I did also watch the TV series, I think it's still on Netflix, which is also of the same name. It wasn't as good, but I would still recommend you watch it. Like I said, I do think the book is better and I do think the book is much more well done. However, the TV series isn't bad, it's just not as good as the book. And I also should have mentioned as well, as with all of these books I mentioned, please check the triggers on all of these books because I guarantee that nearly all of these will have triggers, including this one. This one is extremely trigger heavy. So we have a woman who is married to a MP and they live in London, and he's accused of, I think it's sexual assault and rape. It's all about how these characters are connected through each other. All of them are connected and you have to you kind of are privy to that as the reader. You know how they're all connected quite early on. You know why they're all connected, and it's trying to see how they work this out themselves, if that makes sense. I'm probably not explaining this very well. All you've got to know is it's got courtroom drama, really good courtroom drama, and that's something I found that I really like actually. That's my trope, that's something I've discovered that I like, which is courtroom drama. I thought it was done so well. It's all about secrets and mysteries and connections. There's a lot of flashbacks as well in this. It was just done and in such a way that I honestly was hooked. I was in that. I don't know what was in this book. I don't know what Sarah Vaughan was putting in this book. I don't know what she was sprinkling in there, but whatever it was, it worked for me. And I cannot recommend this enough. I want to not say this so much, but if you love courtroom drama, then you will love this. You know, if you're one of those people, if you're British and you love watching ITV dramas, I feel like this will be for you. And I think that the way they handled these quite dark subjects of, you know, sexual assault and rape and, you know, all these really quite horrible, quite tragic things, they did it, you know, the author did it in such a way where it didn't feel kind of cheesy, and I don't know how to put it, maybe not cheesy, but it didn't feel kind of overdone. And it's things that we have heard about in the news, like I guarantee you've heard about scandals, MP scandals, all that kind of thing. It talks a lot about power dynamics and power and people who are in power and why they should or shouldn't be and how that can influence you, and greed and all this stuff. It's absolutely fascinating, and I'm gonna say this with all the books, you just have to read it. And of course I did give this a 5-star, and like I said, since then I have read a lot of her backlist and they have been either 3 or 4 stars, or I don't think I've had a 5-star from her since, but I've definitely had a high 4-star. I don't know if anything's going to top this book, and I can see why it was put to a TV series because it was that good. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I found another 5-star from her yet, but you know, I've still got her backlist. I've still got things that I want to read from her. So yeah, fingers crossed in 2026, it's the year of Sarah Vaughan continuing. So this next one is a non-fiction book, and it is called The Road to Jonestown, Jim Jones and People's Temple by Jeff Guinn, I think that is, or is it Guinn? So I gave this 4 stars. Again, this is quite a high 4-star. I don't know how to explain this. If you don't know who Jim Jones is, he was a very infamous person in the 70s, where he was more known in the 70s. He was a cult leader, okay? He designed a cult essentially and managed to get a bunch of people from America. He was American. I think it was Brazil or was it Mexico? I can't remember. But basically he managed to massacre them by ingesting this drink, which is Kool-Aid in America, and they all died, including him, I think. I can't remember now. I read this, I think I read this very much earlier this year, so the details are hazy. He is such a bizarre person. Like, he is so bizarre. He's very religious, he's very fanatical, but how he managed to control these people, and I'm not just talking there was like 10 or 20 people, we're talking hundreds of people. Like, he had so many followers. And you know, I'm always kind of low-key fascinated by cults and by cult leaders and members, because to me cults are fascinating, because I get how this happens. Like, when you read into it, you do get it. But this book specifically focuses on Jim Jones as a person. It goes right back into his early life, and you can see like textbook, okay, this is where it starts. Like, you can almost see it, and it's like, it was never boring, you know sometimes these books are kind of a bit boring. Never once did I feel bored. It was a little bit lengthy in parts, but I was fascinated. I think I can't quite remember what I gave it a full 5 stars. I think it was just because it was a bit lengthy in parts, but I never felt bored. I know this is a little bit kind of version on true crime here, which is something I do not try and sort of like promote too much, but like, this is, I think, actually an important lesson of how cults become a thing. Like, I know they're not as big of a thing as they were back then, however, they do still continue. They are still very much a real thing. To some degree, again, I'm probably going a bit philosophical here, but to some degree we are all in a cult. I truly believe that. There are cults and then there are cults, if you know what I mean, and I do feel like these are more of the extreme end of like that kind of thing. And for me, I'm always interested in the psychology of things, like how things happened, what changed someone to become like that, what, you know, that I'm very much a questiony person. I don't know the academic word for that, and it was just fascinating. There's not really a lot to say, and like I said, it was one that was done very well. It was really researched very well. There was lots of interviews that the author scoured through, and there was like exclusive interviews he got. You know, he really did his research basically, and it shows. And I always like, I know it sounds kind of obvious, but when you do a book like this, you have to be sensitive and you have to have done your research. And this author did that. So if you've watched my vlogs, you'll roll your eyes, or maybe you'll celebrate with me, I don't know. But it is, of course, One Day by David Nicholls. I had watched the TV series on Netflix before I had read the book. That's unlike me to do such a thing, but I was so in love with the TV series, and I would say it's one of my favourite Netflix TV series of all time. In fact, probably up there with #1. I absolutely loved it. I do think the TV series is slightly better. Yeah, that's very rare that I ever think that. I think an adaptation is better than the source material. In this instance, I have to say it was. Only slightly though. Now, weirdly, I did give this a 4 star, but it's more of a high 4 star. And it is on my reread list, because I do think if I reread this, I wonder if it's going to change my mind. But anyway, what's it about for those of you completely in the dark about this? So this is about a friendship, a boy and a girl, and they meet at university in Edinburgh. And they kind of separate along the way, but it's like second chance romance essentially. They get back together and they keep falling back into each other's lives, and it documents them all through their 20s, all through their 30s and beyond. I don't normally like second chance romance all that much, but I've decided actually I think I do because this was done in such a way that it felt so, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself. It had realistic like experiences, like what they both go through is very realistic of normal life. We have Dexter, who is the male character, the male love interest like that, because it's a bit of will they won't they for a very, very long time, and he is privileged, he's rich, he's arrogant, he can be quite cocky. And we have Emma, who's kind of the opposite of that. You know, she's very kind of fighting for change, and you know, but then you see them grow up and you see them grow into themselves, and guys, it's so good, and it made me cry. And both, by the way, the book and the TV series. And there's just something about those books, like the writing is so good. And I think as well, and I said this in my review, I think for me personally, it hit with me personally. A lot of it resonated with me. So I do get why some people don't like the book. And there are a lot of people that really don't like the book and don't like the TV series and just like, this is so overrated. And I get it. I totally get it, because honestly, I think it's one of those things that unless it's happened to you or you've been through something very similar, you will never understand it. And I get it. This is what changed me, because these are tropes I don't normally like. And this book, this TV series changed my mind on that. And when a book or TV series or whatever can do that, I'm like, oh, you've got me, I'm listening. So yeah, that's why I had to do it. It's very rare. I'm not usually someone that likes to reread, but I do want to reread this because I would like to see if maybe I still feel the same way, because I think I was coming off that kind of Netflix TV series, still kind of in that zone. So I do wonder if like a year on or something I still feel the same way. Eve by Cat Bohannon. This I gave 5 stars to. This is also a non-fiction book. Now this is so fascinating in that it tells, and I don't know how to start this really, I don't know how to explain this, because there's so many people out there that are so much more articulate than I am, and this is something, if you've watched my channel, you'll know I'm not very articulate and I can barely get my words out sometimes, and yeah, it fascinates me. I'm even able to make a YouTube video sometimes. But anyway, she talks a lot about, and she's researched a lot, and I believe she's some sort of ologist. Oh my god, this is so bad, I can't remember what kind of specialist person she is, but she's someone who studies this kind of thing. But she's someone who studies female biology, anatomy, all that kind of thing, basically how women came to be. What I love about her as well is she's very trans inclusive, so don't go in thinking, oh no, she's brilliant, she's really trans inclusive. She puts out at the start, like, you know, I am trans inclusive basically, blah blah blah, so don't worry about that. She's not going to be saying, oh, you're only a woman if you have woman genitals, isn't it? You know, don't worry about that. It answers a lot of questions on the development of the female sex, and it opened my eyes on this. It opened my eyes. I thought I knew what it was. Okay, I thought, yeah, I get why we have periods, I get all that, blah blah blah. I didn't have a fucking clue. I might as well have been on Planet Zog, do you know what I mean? Because I don't have a fucking clue. And Cat Bohannon come in and it's like, bitch, you know nothing, you know fucking nothing. And she's right, I know fucking nothing, because I was educated, I was sat, I was listening, I was interested, I was not bored. And that's always something, if a non-fiction book can get me and I'm not bored, and it's not talking down to me, it's talking to me, I'm sat, I'm listening, do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, Cat Bohannon, she did that for me, and I do think I would highly recommend this. And I really think actually as well, men should read this. Anyway, everyone, all genders, everyone read it, because it shouldn't just be for women. I think everyone should read this book. See, this is really well researched as well. You know, she's done her research, she's got her receipts, so don't worry about that. It's well researched, it's interesting, it will blow your mind. What more do you want? What more do you want? So then we have Undoctored by Adam Kay. So I gave this 5 stars. So this is the sequel from This Is Going to Her, also by this author. So this was the follow-up from that. Now, This Is Going to Her is a medical memoir. Adam Kay used to be now here we go, I'm going to get this wrong, aren't I? He used to be, I think, I don't know what you call it, but basically a clinician, I think that's it. But he used to be a clinician for gynecology and obs, you know, like when they give birth, when women give birth, it was something to do with that. So in the first book, it's more about what he did in his job and what he kind of dealt with on a daily basis when he was working, and how hard and stressful it could be, and the pressures of it and all the rest of it. Whereas this more goes into how he became a doctor, and he talked a lot more in this one about his sexuality, about how hard it is to become a junior doctor. He was a lot more vulnerable in this one, which I really appreciated. I feel like in the first one it came across almost a bit cocky at mid places. If you haven't already seen it, I would highly recommend you go and watch the TV series, which is based on the first book. Fantastic, phenomenal, beautiful, stunning. I would highly recommend you watch it. Again, check your triggers. I have to say this for every single book, but seriously, this one is, ooh, it's a lot. So yeah, check your triggers. I can't always stress that enough, because there's a lot of shit going down in these books, especially this one. His sense of humour is very similar to mine. He's very kind of sarcastic sometimes. I was laughing out loud. I can't remember the last time I did that with a book. If you're thinking of becoming a doctor, maybe don't read this, because it might put you off. But also I do think you might relate to a lot of it, so I do think maybe this sounds a bit obvious, but I think you'll enjoy it more if you're a doctor. But yeah, or if you've ever worked in the medical profession, NHS, anything like that, I think you would definitely appreciate it. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was done well. It was respectful, and like I said, he does talk, he's a lot more vulnerable in this, which I did appreciate. This next book, I honestly didn't think it would be a 5-star. I thought at most it might be a 3-star. So I was absolutely gobsmacked by this book, I will say. And this is, again, if you see my vlogs, you'll know this and you roll your eyes, The Haar by David Sodergren. This is a 5-star and a very high, well, I'd say mid 5-star actually. I think I gave it more of a low 5-star at the time, but thinking about it on reflection, it's still good. So this is a horror book, and this tells the story of Muriel. Muriel lives in a very remote village in Scotland. It's like a fishing village, and some overseas property developers come in and they basically want to evict all the residents. Now, all the residents at this point are all very elderly, including Muriel, sorry, I think I said that right. And her husband, her late husband, has died, and he's been dead a few years, I believe. And she and all the other residents are like, no, and they offer her like so much money, and some of the residents are considering it, but she's like, absolutely not, I'm not moving, this is my home, you could offer me unlimited money, I will not move. It's not about the money, it's about what this means to me. They don't like that, and so they kind of start, I think if I remember, they start kind of bullying her or like harassing her, and and she doesn't know what to do. So stay with me because this sounds kind of insane, and I thought this too, but I don't want to give spoilers, but she finds a creature, I'm just going to say that, I think it's on one of the beaches. It kind of befriends her and it kind of turns into her late husband, and I don't want to say too much because I feel like that's already maybe a bit of a spoiler, but it was stunning, guys. It was stunning. It talks a lot about age discrimination, what it means when you get older, all this kind of stuff. It talks about, obviously community, and there's a lot to say. I mean, yes, there are horror aspects, but honestly, that was almost in the background. I feel like what it was, I get what it was really trying to say, and I felt like that was the big message that was coming through. And these other horror stuff were creepy and kind of gory in places, and it was quite gory and it was quite creepy, don't get me wrong. But I felt like, honestly, that was on the shelf, if you know what I mean. I was really more intent on the story, what was trying to be told here, and I got that. And the way it was written was just stunning. Like, it was seriously beautiful, and I was not expecting that. And I don't think many people do. When you go in for a horror, you're not expecting beautiful writing, and that was just like an added bonus. It was really the cherry on the top of the cake. Like, it was just beautiful, and I was crying a little bit at this book. I did have tears in my eyes because the way Muriel loved her husband, the way she loved her community, the way she loved full people in her life is something I think we can all relate to. Well, I hope we all can. It got me in the feels, and I didn't expect that. And yeah, okay, the creepy stuff was a bit creepy and it was a bit weird in places. Like, it was weird. It was weird. But what I loved about it is even the character, like Muriel, was like, this is weird. She's like, this is so weird. Like, she thought she was going mad. She's like, this is just weird. Even she was like, I can't believe this. Like, she had moments where she's like, I can't believe this is happening to me. This is bizarre. This is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. Even if you're not a big horror fan, like, I guarantee you'll get something out of that book. Okay, so this next one I'm going to talk about is Sweetpea by CJ Skuse. So I gave this a 5-star, but this is part of the series. Now, again, you'll know this if you've watched any of my videos, but as I said before, I really loved the first book. I think there's 5, if I remember. There's 5 books altogether, I think, or there might be 6, I can't remember, but there's a lot. I really loved the first book. The second book was okay, and then literally from there, it was just kind of rubbish, especially the last 2 were extremely disappointing. I think I ended up giving it 3 or 2 stars. It wasn't great. What's it about? Well, Sweetpea is about a woman called Rhiannon Lewis, and I think I've got that right. There's a lot of dark humour in it because Rhiannon Lewis is a female serial killer. Well, kind of. She kind of accidentally falls into it, sort of accidentally, sort of intentionally falls into being a female serial killer. And you're probably thinking, that sounds kind of weird. Well, you're right, it is weird. But it's so fucking hilarious and it's so funny. And like I said, if you're someone who appreciates dark humour like I do, you will have a fucking ball with this. It is absolutely brilliant writing, brilliant dialogue. So she talks to the reader, and what she says, her internal monologue is just, she is insane. Like, she's insane, but like in the best way possible. I do like as well what this author's trying to say in this book, and maybe I deeped it too much, but there is a slight undercurrent, there's a slight, I don't know what you call it, I guess undercurrent of what it is to be a woman, how we are perceived in our community, in society, what our expectations are as a woman, what our expectations are as a young woman, as an old woman, as a middle-aged woman. That it talks a lot about what it is to be a woman. How do we present ourselves? What does that mean if we go about presenting ourselves this way, or we will be treated this way, or we will be treated this way based on how we choose to present ourselves, or how others rather choose to perceive us. It has a lot to say, I feel, about womanhood. I think it really is just talking about what it means to be a woman, and Rhiannon Lewis is fed up of it. But how she goes about it is obviously a little bit out there, to say the least. But you will have fun with this. I promise you, you will have fun with this book. It is funny, but again, very dark humour. Like I said, if that's not your thing, if you get offended by things like this, then whoop, stay away from that, because you will not like it. But if you're like, okay, I could do with a bit of a laugh, I could do something different, this is different, this is a laugh, this is brilliant. Like I said, you could probably forget the rest of the series. The only reason I continue, because as you know, I'm not usually a series person, is because I really did love the first two. I did hear that it wasn't very good when you continued the series, but I'm a bit of a sucker like that. Like, I just wanted to know what happened. And spoiler alert, not a lot. It was a little bit anticlimactic, that's all I'm gonna say. So then we have my other 5-star read, which is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I talked about this in one of my vlogs or video reviews, I can't remember which one. This book was actually beautiful. Like, it was so stunning. Felt very personal to me. I could resonate with a lot of things that were going on in this book. So what's it about? I haven't even told you what it's about. I'm just going on about how I interpreted this book. Two estranged siblings who kind of get back together, through their dead mum. And their dead mum in the estate leaves them this video recording. I don't want to say too much. I feel like already I've said a bit too much, but it's about the family recipe. Now, this family recipe is a traditional Caribbean black cake, is what they call it. It's a black cake, and it's, like I said, traditional Caribbean recipe. And she always made it, and she always made it with her daughter, because these siblings are a brother and sister. And she wants them to make it again, but like kind of with each other. And it goes a lot through her life and how she ended up to where she is, because one of the reasons the siblings are sort of estranged is because of the mum. Yeah. The mum was a little bit problematic, I'm not going to lie. That's why I liked it, because it was so real. Because what parent, honestly, is 100% great? You know, what parent is 100% never done anything wrong in their lives? I don't think you'll find one, I really don't. It talks a lot about how she got here, like how she got to, because I think she's from the US, but she did live in one of the Caribbean islands before she got to the US, I believe. I could be wrong, I can't remember, I'm trying to remember from memory. And then she went to live in the UK for a bit. And it talks about how she basically ended up in the US, why she ended up in the US, how she managed to get there, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on before she even has her children. And they didn't really know, they knew very little about this. They knew that she wasn't from the US originally, that she was born in one of these Caribbean islands and she lived there for a while, but they don't really know all the details, and they never did, because her mum never really talked about it. If you know me by now, you know I love a bit of family drama in books. There was a lot of family drama. There was a lot of family trauma. There was a lot of generational things coming down the line, if you know what I mean, generational trauma. The mum, I think her name was Eleanor, had a lot to say, and oh my gosh, it was a lot. It was very intense in places, I will say that. It was very intense. It was just a journey, that's all I'm gonna say. It was a journey, and you went on this journey with the mum, like you were there with her, and I very much felt that way. Like I said, it was quite relatable to me as a person, because I related a lot to the experiences of being estranged from a sibling, being estranged from certain family members, all that kind of thing. I related to that aspect of it, of what it's like to lose your mum quite young, or dealing with that kind of side of it and having to deal with that with a sibling, or you know, whatever it is. So I related to that a lot. It did get me in places. I did tear up. I wasn't crying, but it did it got me a little bit. And yeah, it was just beautifully told, and like I said, it has a lot to say about family trauma. When you come to like the secrets that are revealed throughout, you're like, the secrets that happen that get revealed, you can't help but be like, oh shit, like what are they going to do about that? Because that's actually quite a revelation. Like, what are the siblings going to do? Is it going to bring them closer, or is it going to make them more estranged? You know, you have to read it to find out. I do think this mum is somewhat problematic in that she waited till she died to like do all that she did, when she could have just done it in their lifetime. But it's kind of explained why she does it, and yeah, you can make your own judgment there, whether you think that was right or not. But personally, I didn't really think it was right, but I kind of also understand why she did what she did. It's just a very fascinating book, and it's very real, and it feels very kind of, yeah, it gets you in the feels, and I love that, and I think the writing was beautiful. So yeah, I really did enjoy this book, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I did. I wasn't sure about this book at first, I'm not gonna lie, and as I kept reading on, I was quickly invested. So yeah, props off to this author for doing that. It was just beautifully told, and it's It's a story about a family, a tale as old as time, but she did it in such a way that you felt like you were on this journey with them. I'm going to talk about Sweetmeat by Mark Edwards, and I guess I gave it 5 star too, sorry. So this is kind of unusual in that I don't tend to read these kind of books because it's a novella or a short story. It's actually quite unusual because I've read a lot from this author, and this author normally does thrillers or mysteries or thriller mystery, whatever you want to call it. That's what this author is known for. So for him to do horror is very unusual, and it's more of like a thriller horror. It kind of still skirts on thriller, but it's more horror. This was actually amazing, and I didn't think it would be. So this is set in North Wales, and it's set in the heat of summer. And at the time I was reading this, it was the heat of summer, so I'd highly recommend you also try and read it around the heat of summer because it just adds to that vibe. And it's about a group of young children, and one of the children, called Nikki, ends up going missing. And so the other kids are trying to sort of rally around and find him, and obviously everyone's in the local community because it's a very remote, small community, and they're all very worried, and so they're all trying to like go and find this kid. And there's a kind of folk tale, so it's very kind of folk tale-y, or like, what do you call like an urban legend, that there's a creature that lives in the river called Sweetmeat, and that he eats missing and or naughty children. And now a couple of days before Nikki went missing, he was said to have been quite naughty. I can't remember what it is exactly that he did or said, but they kept teasing him, saying, oh, Sweetmeat's gonna get you. And so obviously the children believe that that's what's happened. There's 2 best friends called Philip and Sam, so it's a boy and a girl, and they basically set out to try and find him. So I think they go out like camping and stuff, and this is set, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, it's set in the 80s, I think. I'm pretty sure it's set in the 80s, and there's a lot of like 80s nostalgia in there. It's honestly beautiful. If you're a kid from the 80s, or you know, you have a love of the 80s, you will really love this book. They go off to go and find him. I don't want to say too much obviously without giving it away, and it's just so well done. It's a coming of age story because they're both at this age, and I believe what's her name, Sam, the girl, is a little bit older than Philip. They're kind of like noticing each other, if that makes sense. They're at that kind of pre-teenage where they're kind of like, oh, you're a boy, you're a girl, like, you know, it's that kind of age where they're kind of noticing each other, if you know what I mean. It's like that one summer where they're like, oh, this is probably our last summer like hanging out together, because realistically next year I'm going to be too old to be doing this, and like it's going to be a bit weird because you're a boy and I'm camping with you. Like, you know, when you're younger you can get away with it, but now it's like, this is a bit weird now. Again, like, this is one of those things, it was meant to be kind of horror and it was meant to be scary, and there were creepy parts, and it's about the people they meet on the way and the things they see on the way. And there's always this, like, in the background, this threat of Sweetmeat, but like, you also get to see their relationship and how they're changing. And like, even though, like I said, it's a very, very short story, in that very short amount of space of time, you can see how the characters are like, oh shit, like, we're getting older now, like. And I do feel like Sweetmeat is actually a representation of their losing their innocence, actually, because they kind of, especially the girl who I think, if I remember correctly, is a little bit older than boy, she starts not kind of thinking, I don't think it is Sweetmeat, I think he's just gone missing. And yeah, it's just fascinating. I would actually like to read this again, but I do want a physical copy, and it's really hard to get because it's like a limited edition one. So yeah, and that's unusual for me. It's kind of got some really tender, warm moments in it, which I didn't expect. Again, I went in with like virtually, I didn't have a clue what this is about, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I went in completely blind with this, because honestly I don't think I would have picked it up otherwise. If I'd have read that blurb, I really wouldn't have picked it up. And like I said, one of the reasons this was on my backlist of this author, because I hadn't read this book, and I was like, oh, I'll put that on. Like I said, not realising it was a novella, not realising it was a horror story, I just literally just put it on because I saw it was on his list. I saw he was the author, so I just put it on my to read and didn't think twice about it. Okay, so this next one, I almost didn't put this on because it's very, very similar to Sweetpea by C.J. Skuse, which I did just mention, but this is called Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone. Now this is also part of a series, but I believe, if I can remember, there's only 2, so I also did read the second one, and again, I didn't think the second one was really as good as the first one, so I just recommend reading the first one, really. But again, if you want to read the second one, who am I to stop you? So this is very similar to Sweetpea. It's again about a female serial killer. It's about a woman who's very underestimated in her life. However, this is set in America, whereas Sweetpea was set in the UK. She meets a guy called Stephen at work. Now, Stephen is to put it lightly, he is a not very nice man. I was going to say something, but I thought, no, I'm just going to say that. He's really horrible, basically. He's a bit of a dickhead. She cannot stand him, like, she hates him. But she knows him, but he doesn't know that she knows him. And I'm not going to say how she knows him because that would be a spoiler. That's all I'm going to say. She knows him, but he doesn't know that she knows him, if that makes sense. So she befriends him, she gets into a relationship with him, and she fucks him up. Like, she fucks this guy up, like, and it is so fun. It was so fun. Again, there's dark humour in this. There's a lot to say about feminism. There's a lot to say about women. There's a lot to say about, again, what it is to be women. Again, it's basically Sweetpea, but flipped, I would say. It's like set in America. It's more zoned in on one person, whereas like Sweetpea was kind of a characters, like a host of characters that annoyed this woman, whereas this is just one person specifically. It's a shame that the second book wasn't quite, I would have liked to carry on, but I get why it couldn't carry on without spoiling it too much. Absolutely love this. And I would just say, if you like Sweetpea or you've read Vice, one or the other, you need to read this as well, because you will definitely love this. And I don't know if I mentioned, but that was also a 5-star. So this next one I did read quite recently, I think in November actually, and this is Pine by Francine Toon. I gave this 4 stars, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So it is still a high 4-star, but I couldn't quite give it a 5-star, but I still want to put this on my list because it is still one of my favourite books that I read this year. There's a dad and a girl, and I think the girl's called Lauren and the dad's called Niall, I think. And this is set in the Scottish Highlands. And the girl is around about 12 or 13, something like that. Her mum has either gone missing or is dead, but they don't know. They don't know what happened to her, nobody does. And it's a very remote, small village in the Scottish Highlands, or town, or whatever you want to call it. And they live alone together in the Highlands, and they're very poor. I can't say too much, but it's very creepy. And the mum is kind of hinted to be a bit of a witch, a bit of kind of like a gypsy, that kind of thing. And she's very kind of hippie and bohemian and kind of spiritual, and she does her own thing. And a lot of people in the town know her as being a bit weird and being a bit kooky, a bit out there. So they're not overly surprised that she's gone missing or dead, or nobody knows what's happened to it, like I said. And that's kind of where this story starts. It goes right up until, I think it starts on Halloween, and it goes right up until Christmas. And there's a lot of kind of like almost ghostly supernatural elements in this, which normally I'm not a fan of, but this is done really well in that it's one of those things is like, is it the girl? Is it her? Like, is it her mind? Because people say things to her and then she'll be like, what did you just say? And they'll be like, I didn't say anything. And like, it's like things like that, and you can't tell if it's her or is it everyone fucking with her. It's one of those, and you have to kind of figure it out. Now the dad is a drunk. He's really not coping very well with the loss and or death of his wife. We don't know what happened. He's drinking a lot and he's trying to look after his daughter, but he's struggling. And you do end up feeling sorry for the guy a little bit. Like, he does care about his child and he wants to do the best, but they're quite poor and he's just struggling. He's really struggling. He needs help, and we're not quite sure about his actions, and you start questioning the dad. And it's all very good and it's all very creepy. The only reason I gave it a 4-star and I couldn't quite give it a full 5-star rating is because it did end quite abruptly, and you almost feel like there needs to be a sequel to this. And I think the author has said that they might do one, I can't remember, but it did just end a bit abruptly. And for me as well, it was also just a little bit short. It's not a very long book. I think it's only like 280 odd pages, so it's not a very long book at all really. That ending was very abrupt. It was like, oh, okay, like we're done, are we? Okay, so I'm going to break things up a little bit now, because I'm going to mention what I would call my honourable mentions. So these are ones I didn't necessarily give a 5-star to as well, but they're ones that, they're not necessarily my favourite books of the year, but they definitely are worth mentioning, and I'll explain why. So the first one is You Are Not a Before Picture by Alex Light, and I gave this 4 stars. This is one of those kind of, I don't want to say this because I feel like when I say this it puts people off, self-help book, I'm going to say it is, but it's a good one, don't worry. Like, I wouldn't give you a shit one, don't worry. If you're not sure who Alex Light is, now I used to have Instagram. When I did have Instagram, I used to follow this girl, and I would highly recommend you do if you have Instagram. I think she's got TikTok as well and all that other socials, but she's really good on Instagram, and she's kind of like a, I'm sorry if I got this term wrong, I don't know if this term now is not being used, but she is a influencer, but not an she's a, gosh, I can't speak. I want to say she's a body positivity influencer, but I could be wrong. She is a mid-sized woman, and so same as me, and she talks a lot about what that's like, what her experiences of that are like. She talks a lot about diet culture, fat phobia, all that kind of stuff, and it's not ever doing it in a way where she's going, naughty you on a diet. It's never like that. It's never anything bad. It's never talking down to you. It's never telling you off. It's presenting you with facts, and that's really clearly what it is. And there is some of her opinions in that, but when it is, she makes that very specific that this is just my opinion. But it does challenge the beliefs around diet culture. Now, this is something I have always had a bit of a horrible relationship with. Yeah, I don't like diet culture, and unfortunately it is heavy in our society. I mean, you can't escape it, especially as a woman. I'm not joking you when I say I can't go a day without escaping it, and I could literally be home alone all day and diet culture will creep in, and you know what I mean. It's on the TV, it's on the adverts, it's in our music, it's everywhere. She gives you good kind of tools to work with that, and how you can kind of try and just kind of go, okay, that's fine, but I'm going to ignore that. And there's good strategies to deal with it, basically. It's a very empowering guide on diet culture, I would say, and she has done her research as well. The author, you know, again, is not ill-informed. She has got, you know, facts and figures and all the rest of it. So she has done her research. It isn't just, oh, infographics on Instagram, if you get what I mean. You know, she has gone and done the research. It is well researched, it's well written. So that's why I would recommend this and why it's on the honourable mention. I can't just go in and say, this is a self-help book, because people are just like, oh, I don't want that, which I get, because I've kind of got into that thing of like, I'm kind of done with self-help books, but this is actually a good one. And I'm not sponsored by her or anything. So yeah, this is true representation. It is raw and real. So the next one is Hexy Witch by Daisy May Cooper. You may or may not know, Daisy May Cooper is a British actress here in the UK, and she does a lot of comedy things, and she's from one of my favourite TV programmes called This Country. I have read her other book, which is more of like an autobiography. I can't remember what it's called, but I'll put it here somewhere. And this is kind of not really, I'm not going to say it's a follow-up from that, because it's not. It talks more about her experiences with the supernatural and the paranormal, because she's really into ghosts and ghost hunting and all of that. And it's a very niche one. Again, if you don't know who she is, you probably be like, whatever. But I don't feel like you need to know who she is to read this. Basically, it's a very funny book, and I would highly recommend reading it during like Halloween or the spooky season or whatever, which I did. I didn't do that intentionally either. I just picked it up kind of thing. And I actually loved it. It was hilarious. I gave it 4 stars. There were parts where it's just like, okay, like, I don't know if I really believe that. But yeah, as someone who doesn't really believe in ghosts, not in the way that we know them to be anyway, it was a little bit like, this is something a 12-year-old would do. But at the same time, it was entertaining, it was fun. And I feel like I have to give it a mention, because it did make me laugh in parts. It wasn't like brilliant, it wasn't like the best writing ever, but it was good. And I do think, like I said, I think you don't even have to know who she is, but I can't not put her on this list. But I'd be lying if I said it was my favourite book this year, or one of my favourite books this year. It wasn't, but I feel like I have to mention it, because I do love Daisy May Cooper, and I particularly did love this book. And like I said, you don't need to know her to read this book. You can go in blind, not knowing how she is, and I think you'll still have a really good time with this, because she is funny. You know, she's very open-minded, and that's what I love about her, and that's what I've always loved about her. You know, she's willing to try anything, she's willing to give things a go, and she's willing to make herself look a bit silly for the sake of entertainment. And you've got to respect people like that. Like, yeah, that's quite rare nowadays. So that was my honourable mentions. Now I'm going to go back into it, and I'm going to start with If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. And this I gave a 5-star to. Now this was a surprise for me, I have to say. I did not expect to love this as much as I did. It's very Gilmore Girls inspired. It's an autumnal book. It's Gilmore Girls but reverse. So you imagine Laurie, or no, was it Lorelai and what's his name, Luke, but reversed, and Lorelai's the grumpy one, Luke's the sunshine, or whatever you want to call it, which I prefer anyway. Anyone that knows me knows that I prefer grumpy sunshine, but if it's reversed and the woman's grumpy. It's set in the 90s, and it's about Cliff and I think what's the FMC's name? I think it's Sarah, but I could be wrong. It has found family, it has single dad trope, it has 90s nostalgia, it has cozy vibes. It was just ticking every box. Now I've read a few cozy books now. I've come to this point where I've read a few cozy books, but this was brilliant, and I do actually want to reread this, and I do actually want to get the physical copy, because I absolutely love this. So it's about a woman, again, I think her name's Sarah, and she returns to her hometown called Copper Run. Her parents owned a B&B, I think it was there, and they lived next door to the potential love interest called Cliff, and that's kind of how they meet. She goes back there because her mum recently died, and so her dad is struggling a little bit running it, and he needs a bit of a break, so she goes and runs it for a bit. Well, I think he has a bit of a break, basically, and goes to live with someone. I can't remember quite what happened now. And I think she also has a younger sister who also wanted a break or something, I can't remember. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say without spoiling it too much. There's a lot of 90s nostalgia. Now, I'm going to show my age here, but I was born in 96. So I was born in the 90s, but I don't really remember it because I was very, very young. But actually it was bringing back stuff that I was like, oh, I kind of have a vague memory of that. Like, I would have been very small, but I do have vague memories of things, you know. I'm not completely like, I have no idea what the 90s is. I do have very vague memories. So yeah, it was kind of cool to see that. Guys, it was just good. It was a good cozy book, but it was a good cozy book. It had all the tricks that I love and the vibes were immaculate. The only little tiny issues I had, if I remember, was, and they were very teeny tiny, is it did drag a bit in places. It did feel like, okay, we can wrap this up a bit now, because it also was very relatable to me. Her mum died in the book. That all came back to me, and how she dealt with that was very similar, sort of similar to how I dealt with it when my mum died and all the rest of it, blah blah blah. So the next one I'm going to talk about, and this might be surprising to some people, it might or it might not, I don't know, but this was A Slow Fire Burning by Paula Hawkins. Now, Paula Hawkins, as you may or may not know, is the author of The Girl on the Train, that went to do very well. Now, I did love The Girl on the Train, so I thought, why not read her next book, which was at that time, I think it was anyway, I'm probably just talking out my ass there, but it was at the time A Slow Fire Burning, and I gave it 5 stars, and I really liked it, and I didn't expect it. I thought this cannot be as good as The Girl on the Train. Now, was it as good as The Girl on the Train? No, but I still loved it. It's set in London. It's about the lives of 3 very different women. These women are all kind of loosely connected to this murder of a young man that was found in one of the narrowboats in one of the canals in London. I'm not quite sure about the geography of it. I'm sorry if that sounded really vague, because I don't know London that well, really. And it's very much a whodunit, so that's all you really need to know. But the lives of these 3 women, and I think it's like, is it 3 or is it 4 women? Do you know what? I can't remember. But it's how they're all connected, and they're all from different walks of life. They're all different ages. They've all got different life experiences. But you connect to each of these women, or at least I did. I connected to them. I could see myself in each of these women. I think that was the point. I wanted to know who did it. And when you think you know, so it's this person, oh, it's not, it's this person. And there was a lot of twists. Now, I will admit the ending was a little bit like, that's kind of dumb. Like, there was a bit of a dumb ending, but I can't lie, I was entertained. I did love it. I loved the chunk of it, and I think that's what really matters. Like, sometimes the ending's a bit meh, but I had a good time. This kind of made me rediscover my love of thrillers. Like, this is what I want. And I've been reading some really bad thrillers, so I'm still wondering if it was the fact that maybe this was just like one that was kind of okay, and I was just like, oh, I just needed it so bad that I gave this 5 stars. But I did. I can't lie, I had a good time with this. And Paula Hawkins remains supreme. I'm sorry, because I know a lot of people don't seem to like this book, but I liked it. And a lot of people seem not to like The Girl on the Train, but I liked it. I'm basic bitch. I am basic because I liked it. I like what I like. Why am I getting so hot? It's actually fucking boiling here. We haven't got the heating on. Winter, and I'm fucking boiling. Right, last but definitely not least was One of Them by Musa Okwonga. I hope I pronounced that right. Gave this 5 star. Absolutely love this. This is a memoir. This is a very short book, but it's based about a young black man's experience of going to Eton. If you don't know what Eton is, if you're like, what the fuck is she on about? Eton is a private boys boarding school in London. Now, I don't think you have to board. You can also, I think, just go there. But yeah, it's a very prestigious, very elite place to go, and it costs a fucking fortune. Now, I don't know the exact cost. All you need to know is it costs a fortune. Us poor folk will never go there, so you know, this is for the rich. To give you a scale of how like bougie this place is, I mean, all the male prime ministers have been there, all the royal family have been there that are men, you know, all the high people have been there. So yeah, you get the message. So this book very much talks, and this author very much talks about race and class in modern Britain and what it meant for him to be a black boy, or black man rather, experiencing Eton, because as you can imagine, Eton is mostly made up of Caucasian men or boys, because obviously the predominant age are teenagers, right? Because I believe it is for secondary school, but I could be wrong. If I remember from the book, he was in like a normal comprehensive junior school, and then he went to Eton. He did really want to go to Eton. He was somewhat pushed by his mum, but he did actually really want to go. Now, his mum was a doctor. I believe she was a single mother. I think he either had a younger or older sibling. Well, he had a sibling, but yeah, I can't remember now. Like I said, I've read this a while back. I loved this because he was so vulnerable with this, but he was also so real with this. Because when you're being vulnerable, you have to be real, don't you? Like, you are being real. You're not having to be. You usually are being real. And you know, he talks a lot about his sexuality. He talks a lot about sexuality, because he he thinks he may be bisexual. I can't remember, and I'm sorry if I got this wrong, I can't remember if he did confirm at the end of the book if he was bisexual. I can't remember, but anyway, he talks a lot about bisexuality. He talks a lot about what it's like to be black and what it's like to be a black man at Eton and a black young man and what it's like with that experience. Because as you can imagine, you know, Eton's a very prestigious school that's been there since, I don't know when it was actually there, but you know, as a young black man experiencing that, he did face some racism, but in a very kind of subtle way, because obviously people, well, I say obviously, this does happen, but you know, sometimes racism isn't in your face, is it? It's not like, I don't like you because of the colour of your skin. Sometimes it obviously can be that way, and that's horrible, and it should never happen, but it's also usually in a very subtle way, and it talks a lot about that, and it never dragged. It was very short. I wanted to know more. I was hungry for more, but I do understand why it couldn't be quite a long book, because at the end of the day, Eton was a big part of his life, but it wasn't his whole life, you know, because you only really, although at the time, I know when I was a teenager, it certainly felt that way. It feels like you're there forever and ever, but really you're only at school for, well, secondary school for about 5 years, if that. And, you know, it is a long time, sure, but it's not really, compared to the rest of your adult life, it's really not that long, is it? But it is interesting that he kind of turned his back on Eton, and once he graduated, he was kind of like, I didn't really like it. Like, it was not that great, and like, yeah, I learned some stuff, sure, but I could have done this the comprehensive way. Like, I could have just taken a normal education, and I say it like that, normal education. And I just thought that was fascinating, because really after all of it, he said it was just a school, really. Like, it really was just a school, like any other school. Like, yes, of course there were some differences, but he kind of disagreed with it, and he thought, you know, if I was to go back now, I don't even know if I would go to Eton. I don't think I would choose it. Me as a white person, or anyone as a white person, could never quite experience it that way, because, well, we're white and the system is kind of tailored to us, let's be honest now, you know, whereas for a black person, they have to try that bit harder. They have to be, you know, that much more aware than we do. It is eye-opener to someone like me, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm white, I'm a white woman, like, I don't experience it in the way that a black person would. It challenges that, and it should do, and I liked it for that, and that's why it's on my list, because it was actually a really insightful, good, honest memoir, and we love ones like that, and it was wrote very well as well. What was my favourite book this year? It's really hard to choose. They're definitely a top 3. And oh, I forgot to mention, sorry, I just forgot to mention, I just remembered it because I only really recently just read this. Now, I'm going to put this in the honourable mention. I did also read a book called Stay Another Day by Juno Dawson. Now, if you see my December vlog, you'll know about this. Absolutely love that. Now, technically it is a Christmas book, so that's why it's going to get an honourable mention. I gave it 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. Beautiful book, but I thought I would just mention that. It, again, has family drama, it has family trauma, it's set in Scotland, it's about 3 set of siblings who all go back to stay over Christmas at their family's home, and everything goes to shit, but in the best way possible. And it's brilliant. It talks a lot about sexuality, it talks a lot about divorce, it talks a lot about what it is to be gay, what it is to be trans, what it is to be non-binary. It talks, and it has a lot to say about it, and I loved it. And go and read it, because I was crying and I loved it. And yeah, so anyway, back to what I was saying. It's probably The Haar by David Sodergren. I think it's just, honestly, it blew my mind. I did not expect to love it as much as I did, and I think when books do that, it's always gonna kind of stay with me. And you know, I haven't read any other books from this author yet, however I do have their backlist on my TBR. I have heard that this is one of the author's better ones, so apparently the other ones aren't as great, so we'll see. I mean, I won't know yet until I read them. I remember now, it's coming back to why I ended up giving it a low 5 star. I think it was just because, as good as it was, there were some moments where the villains, like the overseas property developers, did seem a little bit villainish cartoon, if you know what I mean, like, we're going to take your house away. They did come across a little bit caricature, so that's why it was hard for me to really connect to the story sometimes, and it did seem a little bit out there sometimes, if you know what I mean. But you know, I think the story did overshadow that in the end, so that it wasn't so much of a problem, but that was my only criticism. I think Anatomy of a Scandal comes very close though, I do think that, but I think it has to be The Haar. I think The Haar, yeah, it's The Haar, it's The Haar, it's The Haar. And stay tuned, because I will also be releasing the worst books I read in 2025. And unfortunately, I do have a bit of a list for that too. You shall see who is crowned, or what is crowned rather, the worst book of 2025 that I read. I think I already know what it is, and if you've been watching my vlogs, I'm sure you already know what it is. But anyway, well done, The Haar. You won an award. I couldn't tell you what that award is, but you've won it. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll shut up now.